Breaking news. Nigel Farage has detonated a political earthquake inside the House of Commons, forcing an emergency debate that tore straight through Prime Minister Keir Starmer, live and unfiltered, in front of the nation. What unfolded at precisely 2:47 p.m. this afternoon sent shockwaves far beyond Westminster, reverberating across Europe, Washington, and financial markets around the world. Senior political figures are already warning that what happened today may have extinguished any realistic hope of Labour surviving the next general election intact. Historians may one day look back on this moment as the instant Britain's political establishment visibly fractured under pressure. Understanding what happened now is absolutely critical, because the next 72 hours could reshape Britain's political, constitutional, and economic future in ways not seen for generations. According to UK Housing Insight, this crisis is unfolding against a backdrop of rising living costs, housing stress, and collapsing public trust, making the consequences even more explosive. The chain reaction began just 3 hours earlier. Nigel Farage rose inside the House of Commons and invoked Standing Order 24, a rarely used parliamentary mechanism often described by insiders as the nuclear option. It allows an MP to force an immediate emergency debate on a matter deemed to be of urgent national importance. The moment the words left his mouth, the chamber fell into stunned silence. Labour MPs froze, visibly processing the reality that this was not a routine policy dispute, not a budget clash, and not political theatre. Farage's language was deliberate, precise, and devastating. He called for the House to debate the Prime Minister's fitness to govern, citing what he described as credible evidence that Keir Starmer had knowingly misled Parliament regarding foreign interference in British immigration policy. The word knowingly hung in the air, heavy with implication. In Westminster, that single word can end careers. Starmer did not attempt to de-escalate, he did not pause. Instead, he leapt to his feet and made what veteran observers now describe as the single worst tactical decision of his premiership. His face flushed deep red. Journalists in the press gallery noted visible shaking, clenched fists, and an uncharacteristic loss of composure. Addressing the chamber, the Prime Minister launched a furious personal attack, accusing the honourable gentleman from Clacton of spreading conspiracy theories and dangerous fantasies. He insisted there was no evidence because no evidence existed. He branded the motion a desperate stunt from a desperate man leading a party that would never govern Britain. The outburst was raw, emotional, and immediate, and in politics, emotion without control is fatal. Farage did not react, he did not interrupt, he did not raise his voice. He stood calmly, a thin manila folder resting in his hand, almost smiling. When he finally rose to respond, his tone was measured, almost clinical, and that made it far more dangerous. Addressing the Speaker, he stated that he possessed documents obtained through Freedom of Information requests that told a very different story. He asked why the Prime Minister's office had met European Union migration officials 17 times in the past 6 months. He asked why those meetings were never disclosed to Parliament. He asked why leaked internal emails showed discussions around migrant quotas that were never announced to the British public. Each question landed like a hammer blow. The reaction inside the chamber was instant. Conservative benches erupted into cheers. Some MPs were seen pounding desks. Labour backbenchers sat in stunned silence, eyes fixed forward, some visibly pale. Within minutes, the Speaker granted the emergency debate. By 3:12 p.m., the gavel had fallen. Keir Starmer had walked straight into a political trap of his own making. As Westminster descended into chaos, the wider country watched with growing anger and disbelief. This fury did not come from political loyalty, it came from lived reality. Across Britain, pensioners who worked for decades, paid taxes all their lives, and followed every rule are now struggling simply to survive the winter. Yesterday morning, outside a food bank in Sunderland, 71-year-old widow Margaret Wilson spoke through tears. Her husband served in the Falklands. She worked as an NHS nurse for 38 years. Today, she says she must choose between heating and eating. Her pension covers neither. She told reporters she feels invisible, abandoned by the country she gave her life to, while those who cross the channel are placed in hotels with 3 meals a day. At the same time, British veterans are sleeping rough on the streets of London. Illegal migrants receive full medical care, taxpayer-funded legal support, and accommodation costing an estimated £7 million per day, according to leaked Home Office figures. Heated rooms, regular meals, mobile phones, and cash allowances now exceed what many British pensioners receive. UK Housing Insight notes, this has also intensified pressure on rental markets, pushing local housing costs higher and deepening resentment. The contrast has become so stark, so morally corrosive, that even lifelong Labour voters are walking away in unprecedented numbers. A poll released this morning shows that 68% of Britons believe the government cares more about appearing compassionate to foreigners than protecting the citizens who built the nation. This is no longer a partisan claim. It reflects a widespread belief that the social contract itself has collapsed. When the data is examined, the anger only deepens. Figures from the Department for Work and Pensions reveal that 127,000 British pensioners applied for winter fuel payment assistance last month alone. That is a 340% increase compared to the previous year. These are people who rebuilt post-war Britain, paid taxes for decades, and followed every rule, only to be told there is no money left for them. Meanwhile, the Home Office quietly approved a £180 million contract for migrant accommodation in hotels across southern England. The deal was signed late at night, a timing critics say was deliberately chosen to avoid parliamentary scrutiny. When Labour backbencher Rosie Duffield demanded answers, she was told it was routine procurement. Voters watching elderly Britons freeze in their homes did not accept that explanation. Then came the moment nobody expected, at 4:23 p.m. As the emergency debate raged, King Charles broke with decades of royal convention. Speaking at a reception for Commonwealth diplomats at Buckingham Palace, he was expected to deliver ceremonial remarks about shared values and historic ties. Instead, according to multiple sources present, the king departed from his prepared text. He spoke of democratic institutions resting on truth, transparency, and the sacred trust between those who govern and those who are governed. He warned that when that trust is compromised, the very foundations of the constitutional monarchy are placed at risk. Palace insiders later confirmed those remarks were not part of the approved speech. Constitutional scholars immediately grasped the significance. Professor James Reynolds of Cambridge described it as the most pointed intervention by a British monarch since the abdication crisis, widely interpreted as a direct and devastating signal to Downing Street. The consequences were immediate. By 5:30 p.m., the pound had fallen sharply against the dollar. Billions of pounds were wiped from the FTSE in a single trading session. Investors reacted not to political drama, but to instability. Britain, long seen as a pillar of constitutional order, suddenly looked fragile. Inside the Labour Party, internal divisions erupted into open conflict. A WhatsApp group known as Labour Future exploded with hundreds of messages in under 2 hours. Leaked screenshots showed MPs using words like catastrophic, finished, and leadership challenge. 7 junior ministers requested emergency meetings with the chief whip, not to discuss policy, but succession. Online, viral clips of the Prime Minister's furious Commons outburst spread faster than Labour's communications team could respond. By early evening, protests erupted across Manchester, Birmingham, and Newcastle. Thousands gathered, many elderly, many veterans, waving Union Jacks and demanding accountability. These were not organized demonstrations led by parties. They were spontaneous eruptions of public anger. International reaction followed swiftly. European leaders issued carefully worded statements expressing concern. Washington confirmed it was monitoring developments closely. For a country long associated with stability, being publicly cautioned by allies marked a profound humiliation. Inside Number 10, sources describe an atmosphere of near-total panic. Shouting matches echoed through corridors. Emergency WhatsApp groups titled Plan B and Emergency Cabinet began circulating scenarios that would have been unthinkable just days earlier. Senior figures went silent. As Keir Starmer finally left the Commons chamber, witnesses said he looked utterly broken. His hands were trembling, his composure was gone. According to UK Housing Insight, the question now is no longer whether Labour will move against its leader, but when. British politics has entered uncharted territory. The next 72 hours will decide not just the fate of one Prime Minister, but the direction of the country itself. One thing is certain. After today, nothing will ever be the same again.